Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mio Dread or the Mio on MMA podcast, talking about UFC Seattle, which is coming up here in a couple days, and also I'll quickly touch on the Candier versus Rodriguez card, which was about as good as I could expect it to be. There were a couple of fights that let me down. Obviously, I was looking forward to seeing Gabe Petrosky or Andre Petrosky and Rodolfo Vieira actually have a grappling match, which they did not do. They had a terrible, terrible kickboxing match instead, which was disappointing. But hey, the main event went basically like I kind of thought it would. Like, yes, Gregory Rodriguez, Hobocop, he could hurt Jared Cannonier. He could do bad things to him, but his game is not suited in a way to keep that up. And eventually that did happen. He got tired, he started gassing out, and he got stopped in the fourth round in a fight that was basically turning against him from the second round onwards. So, good on Jared Cannonier. The old man gets another win. Yusuf Zalal and Calvin Kattar is a fight that I sincerely hope to never have to watch again, because I sincerely hope that it will have absolutely no probative value on predicting either of their fights in the future, because Zalal, especially in the third round, just avoided combat the whole time. He was up 2-0, and he just kind of like borderline timidity, borderline kick a point for like avoiding contact and not fighting. And I'm not a guy who usually says that because number one, I believe that winning the fight is predominant importance. But I believe that realistically, your way of coasting out a fight should not be to just basically run away. And that is basically what Yusuf Zalal did. So that kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. Definitely ruins any hype he gets from beating Kattar going forward. He also called Kattar a Hall of Famer, which, no. Edmund Shabazian beat up Dylan Budka. No, nothing surprising there. Ishmael Bonfim was looking really good against Nazim Sadikov until he ate a question mark kick to the face. And then basically kind of quit. Like he told the doctor, or he told his corner, and it got to the doctor, obviously, that he couldn't see out of his eye that got kicked. And they will stop the fight for that, and fighters do know that. So, I'm not calling him a bum or anything. Like if he couldn't see, he couldn't see. I'm just saying that like he had to know that bringing that to anybody's attention was going to get the fight stopped. That's all I'm saying. And then, the Petrosky Vieira fight was garbage. Delgado beat Connor Matthews. Doesn't really mean anything. Angela Hill won a close split decision in 2025. What world am I living in? And it's probably one that she honestly deserved to lose to Ketlin Souza. But hey, there you go. Rafael Estevan versus Jesus Aguilar was fine. Gabriel Bonfim got a pretty cool stars choke on Chaos Williams. And Elijah Smith. All right, I'm going to say something kind of like probably controversial about the Elijah Smith-Vince Morales fight. Number one, I scored it for Morales. I have no problem with Smith winning it, but I did score it for Morales. But if I am Elijah Smith, I am treating this as a loss. The reason is that there's not many bantamweights below Morales in the rankings. He is pretty much the gatekeeper to UFC caliber 135. And I do think Elijah Smith is UFC caliber 135. I think he has the physical ability. I think he has the calm and cool under pressure, and the grit and determination also required. But he needs to be better. Like if this version of Elijah Smith fights much further up the division from Vince Morales, he will lose, and he will lose kind of badly. So I'm taking my young prospect thing here where it's like, all right, you won. I'm not going to question that. I'm not going to take the zero away. I'm not going to say you're not undefeated, but you do need to look at this as a loss from a developmental standpoint. Or pardon me, he actually already has lost a fight. But he needs to look at this as a loss going forward and like try to learn from it, because there is a lot of signs that he will not win much further up in the division from this fight. That's what I'm saying. There's great potential. He's 22 years old. Let the man roll. How did he lose, out of curiosity? I'm blanking that he lost a fight. Yeah, okay, he lost to Reyes Cortez by TKO in the third round at Fury FC 76. So, there you go. Something to be worked on. Walter Walker got a heel hook on Dontel Mays. Not much to say about that. And Jacqueline Calvacanti basically pants Julia Avila in her retirement fight, but at the same time didn't really show anything new or that. Like, there's nothing that has enhanced my thought on her for the moment. And considering her talk coming into the fight of wanting to show something new, that is a bit of a problem. So the card lived up to reasonable levels of expectations. There was only one fight that I felt pained watching, and it was because Petrosky and Vieira, two like actually really solid middleweight grapplers, elected to throw hands and have a bad kickboxing fight. So there you go. Right. Quickly going to talk about this. Ilia Topuria apparently is vacating the 145 belt to go fight Islam Makhachev. I appreciate that he's vacating the belt, to be honest, because that makes a lot of sense. He doesn't hold up the belt. Instead, we get Diego Lopez versus Alexei Volkanovski for the title, and then he's going to go fight at UFC 314 against that's where that fight's going to happen. I don't think they've actually booked the Makhachev fight against Topuria. I assume that's where they're going anyways. Like, if he doesn't end up fighting Makhachev, that is going to be a complete waste. But I know Topuria's had some issues with making 145 before, or 145 before, which is a bit weird because he's only 5'7". But anyways, that's an interesting development. At least the division's not being held up. Anyways, let's talk about UFC Seattle. But before we get into the fights, let's talk about betting. Let's do that whole dance that I always do. I am going to talk about betting odds. I'm going to talk about who I'm betting on. I'm going to talk about things that may help you determine who's going to win the fight and put money on that fight. But MMA betting is not a path to financial freedom. It is too volatile. It is too unpredictable. It is too messy to get that kind of thing. It does not give you a source of income for life. Please do not treat it like it does. There you go. Got that out of the way. Let's roll on here. And let's talk about the card here real quick. So, Yadong Song versus Henry Cejudo. Main event. Pretty exciting fight. Pretty interesting fight, too. The issue here, though, is an age one. 38-year-old Henry Cejudo. Do I trust him to beat Yadong Song? And the answer I keep circling back to is no. Is Yadong Song at some unbeatable force? Obviously not. Number one, he's lost. But number two, Yadong Song is a really limited fighter in the sense that he is incredibly good at a very narrowly defined fight. He wants you to come into the pocket with him and to trade bombs. And he'll fight at a good pace. He'll fight in combination. He'll throw really, really hard. And he's very, very hard to beat in that kind of fight. Exceptionally hard. But he's also shown a complete lack of footwork ability to actually force that fight on people. Basically, his way of making you fight that is, I'm going to throw really, really hard at you at range. And you're just not going to like getting hit. And you're going to be like, nah, we need to make something else happen here. We need to make the wrestling happen or whatever. We need to bring more weapons to bear in the fight. And that leads to the pocket exchanges that he's very, very good at. And it'll work against most people, as we have seen. He's a phenomenal athlete, really hard to out-wrestle, and hits really hard. But that is kind of it. So, is there a game plan that a Henry Cejudo, who is pretty capable of doing really good game plans, he's been credited with a lot of the fight-ready game planning that has been really, really impressive over the last couple of years. But I struggle to find a fight where I think Cejudo himself, for himself, instituted a game plan. I would like it if someone disagrees with me, and please feel free to, but please point to the fight. Because it's not knocking out Dominic Cruz in the second round. It's not knocking out Marlon Moraes in the third round. It's not the TJ Dillashaw fight where he flattened him. It's not the DJ fight because he lost that fight, frankly. Joseph Benavidez adapted better than him as well when they fought. And admittedly, I thought Cejudo won, but hey, still, that's a sign of it. And then then we're getting back to Sergio Pettis in 2017 and stuff. It's never really been there. And the problem with Cejudo is he's 38 years old, and at bantamweight, that is quite old. Honestly, at any weight class, sans, I guess, heavyweight and maybe 205. That is pretty old. And he's not really capable of putting on a great pace. He's not really capable of overwhelming someone in the pocket. He's a surprisingly good striker, but it feels like he's going to accept the fight and the pace Yadong wants. In fact, he'll actually probably get outpaced by Yadong, to be honest. Because Yadong Song is stunningly high pace for a guy who throws everything into it, like the whole body. Like sometimes he'll throw a punch, like a big old hook, and like the whole body is coming with it. And it's definitely going to hit really, really hard, but it's got to tax the cardio. And as a result, it's a little bit miraculous that he has done the thing he has done. I really would have wished if Yadong Song, and it's not too late, he's 27, but if he had not gone to Team Alpha Male and instead had gone to the MMA Lab, hell, even like Elevation Fight Team, Fortis MMA, American Top Team, maybe not American Top Team. Trying to think of some other gyms here that would work out. Maybe even like Alliance, actually. Speaking of the arch nemesis of Team Alpha Male, Alliance MMA and Dom Cruz. I feel like there was a lot on the table there. And essentially, yeah, if Cejudo was a bit younger, a bit more in his prime, and somebody who I really trusted the hunger of, and I really don't, that he would be able to solve this puzzle. But at the end of the day, I'm picking Yadong Song by decision. He could knock out Cejudo, but Cejudo is pretty legendarily durable, pretty hard to hit. So yeah, that's the call. Yadong by decision. He's a minus 250 to minus 310 favorite. That feels about right. Cejudo plus 200 to plus 230. Again, that feels about right. Co-main event, middleweight bout between Brendan Allen and Anthony Hernandez, Fluffy Hernandez. If this wasn't a rematch of a 2018 fight, I'd be really fascinated in the dynamic of Allen's aggressive half guard and like almost sacrificial grappling game against the relentless pressure, top punishing grappling of Anthony Hernandez. But the problem is that it happened in LFA as opposed to the UFC, which is a shame because frankly, that fight deserves to be seen by a lot more people than have seen it. It's on UFC Fight Pass. It's probably on ESPN Plus. Go pull it up. It's Anthony Fluffy Hernandez versus Brendan Allen, LFA. I don't remember the number. 2018. Go check it out. It's a great fight. It's a phenomenal fight. It was the best part of studying for this card was watching that fight. But I've now seen that dynamic play out in a 3-round fight, essentially, because by the second round, Fluffy was in effect. He was breaking Allen down. He was getting top control. He was making Allen tired. He was punishing Allen for his, let's just say, aggressiveness on the ground. His grappling expertise was not carrying the day. He wasn't combusting like a lot of Fluffy's opponents do and getting finished. Obviously, it went to decision, but Allen was running out of ideas for how to actually make the scrambles his own. He was getting out scrambled, did not like it, did not know how to stop it. Now, you might be screaming, we're talking about a fight that's 7 years old, 6-7 years old anyways. There has to have been some improvements. And the answer is yes, but I don't think that they're applicable improvements is the problem. Allen is a much better striker now than he was in 2018. The problem is what role does that play in this fight? He's still going to engage in the grappling with Hernandez. He's still going to go out there and get into those scrambles. He's still going to go out there and give up those positions. That's the problem, is that the area in which he lost to Hernandez is something he's not necessarily needed to improve. It's the part of his game that still works. And as a result, it's the part of his game he really doesn't focus on preparing for. So it's like, is he with a different camp now than he was then? I don't think so. I don't think so because I'm pretty sure he had GM3 in his corner for that fight and not hit. And that at the time when GM3 was with Killcliff guys, as they are known now, they were known as something else at the time. But there was references to Henry Hoof. Like, it's not like he's changed his program. So assuming that he's not going to try and have a BJJ kickboxing match, which I'll be honest, he'll probably win. But God knows after watching Petrosky versus Vieira, I don't want that. I don't even want to consider that. I don't want to even wish that into existence. I suspect we'll see a very similar fight to the first time they fought. And the first time they fought was, yes, a incredibly close first round that I honestly, to this day, could not tell you who won. But a fight that started to go very much in Hernandez's favor after that. And I'm predicting that similar thing there. Hernandez is himself very, very flawed. There's incredible defensive deficiencies. Like I said, if this fight turns out to be a kickboxing affair, he will lose it because his stand-up is a nightmare for a guy who's doing what he's doing in the UFC right now. But he is going to pressure. He is going to make this a grappling fight. Allen doesn't have a way to say no, and we should get the funness. I really, really hope so. I cross my fingers, hope, all the things. Cross fingers, cross toes, cross anything you can cross. That this actually does look like the other fight that they had, and there you go. Because the guys who have managed to force Allen into a grappling match that he has beaten are basically just Kyle Daukaus on short notice and Jacob Malkoun in a fight that I think a lot of people thought Malkoun actually won because he ended up on top like a lot. So, yeah. I have to pick history to repeat itself. I'm hoping for that there will be a couple of new ideas. I'm hoping that Allen brings a bit of a harder scramble game to Hernandez as well and makes some better decisions instead of giving up some of these straight up really, really bad ideas he had in the first fight. But I got Hernandez by decision. Let's lock that in. Hernandez is minus 320 to minus 360, which seems very weird on paper. When you really think about it. Don't get me wrong, he won this fight the first time. I'm picking him. But it is weird that Allen has had way more high prominent UFC success than Hernandez. And yet here we are having him as a sizable underdog. A guy who's only lost to Chris Curtis, Sean Strickland, and Nasruddin Buff. And who's beaten, I might add, quite badly, Paul Craig, Andre Muniz, Krzysztof Yatko, that kind of thing. Whereas Anthony Hernandez, mostly because of fights falling apart, because he's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 fights in the UFC get canceled. So it's a lot. It's a lot. And he's only had 9 fights in the UFC. That is kind of the thing. And a guy who's lost to Marcus Perez and Kevin Holland. So obviously it can happen. He got anaconda by Perez. If you can get anaconda by Perez, you can get anaconda by Brendan Allen. If you can get ground and pound knocked out by okay, well, no, I can't really see Allen doing what Kevin Holland did, but still, there's just a lot of defensive liabilities there. So he is a live dog, even if it's a fight that feels very similar to the first time around. Rob Font versus Jan Matsumoto. This was supposed to be the Dominic Cruz retirement fight, and I feel bad for Font because Font was scheduled and signed on to be a part of a historical fight. Dom Cruz's final fight in the UFC, his retirement fight, a fight that I don't necessarily know if I would have picked Font. I think I was going back and forth on it, but a fight that he could win, and at the very least that there was something to get. And with Matsumoto, there's just nothing there because Matsumoto is coming off a win over Brad Katona, and it's if he loses to Matsumoto, it's pretty damning. If he beats Matsumoto, it doesn't really mean anything. I like Matsumoto; he's impressed me so far, but there is a solid problem here: is that you did go nip and tuck with Brad Katona, a guy who is notable for having a hard time defining a fight in his favor. And you did win, and you did fight at a high pace, and you are a little muscle ball, but at the same time, it is really concerning that you had that fight with Katona. It's it is really concerning. But am I picking him against Font? I think the answer has to be no. There is a point on these two trajectories where Matsumoto will beat Font. And I'm not even saying if you give Font 20 years and he's in his 50s, he'll get beat up by Matsumoto. Nah, I'm not saying that. I am saying that I don't know, probably somewhere around Matsumoto, probably in about 5 years, Matsumoto would be ready to beat Font, pretty comprehensively actually. I just don't think we're at that point yet. He's really well-rounded. He's got a good guillotine game, but he has a hard time really hurting people, really putting his authority on them. And if you look at the guys Rob Font has lost to, they're guys who can do that really easily. They're guys like Davidson Figueiredo, Marlon Vera, Jose Aldo. And then you have to go way back to get to anything else, but this feels more like the Kyler Phillips fight. Feels more like the Adrian Yanez fight. Feels more like I don't want to say the Cody Garbrandt fight because Garbrandt is his own unique, special crap. Ricky Simon, there you go. That's a good example. 2019 Ricky Simon. This just feels like a fight that the things that Font is falling apart with, and his degradation as a fighter, don't necessarily play into a Matsumoto win. Am I going to be shocked? No, I'm not going to be shocked whenever we see a 25-year-old against a 37-year-old, that the 37-year-old loses. Like, that's obviously going to be on the table. But if we look at the guy who fought Brad Katona last, and we look at the guy who fought really any of Rob Font's fights, you have to take the Font fight, as long as you're not looking at that Corey Sandhagen fight. as long as we're not looking at that god-awful Sandhagen fight, you got to pick Font. So Font by decision, he is the underdog at plus 130 to plus 135. Matsumoto at minus 160 to minus 170. That's the first one I'm leaning into a bet there. I do think Font is a little bit too much right now. John Silva, Melsik Bogdasarian in a fight that makes absolutely zero sense. Silva's coming in like red hot, all the momentum. He's beaten Drew Dober and Charles Jourdain. He looks like a world beater. He's got the athleticism. He's got that fighting nerds rub. He's a violent finisher. He's dangerous. He's fairly all-rounded. His grappling game is actually really solid and dangerous. It's just that, by the same token, it's a grappling game that he uses defensively as a way of being like, okay, you're tired of me beating you up in the feet. Oh, you want to grapple with me? Okay, I've got your neck. I've got top position and I'm landing hard ground and pound on you. This is not actually any better for you. But there's no way of really putting that onto Bogdasarian, who that is his weakness. But I am still going to pick him here, even though like I am struggling a little bit to figure out what the fight's really going to necessarily look like. Bogdasarian is a good kicker who really likes to limit his combinations to like one or two strikes. And when he gets longer than that, he kind of falls apart. There's a lot of like not knowing what to do with space in his game. There's a lot of like really, really, really wanting to be at long range. And I just figure that Silva's got the speed, the determination, and when he does get inside, the size and power to kind of just bully Bogdasarian and pick up a TKO here. It could go the distance. Bogdasarian is fairly durable, but Bogdasarian's also not been in the cage for a little bit, and he's had some injury issues. He's been out. There's ring rust. There's all kinds of concerns here. I got to go with John Silva. He is a prohibitive favorite at minus 500 and minus 590. I just don't bet at those odds. And Bogdasarian's plus 350 to plus 400. Alonzo Metafield and Julius Walker. This is where the fight card kind of starts to get pretty bad, in that there's not really much I'm looking forward to down here. There's like maybe individual fighters I'm looking forward to, don't get me wrong, but the actual quality of the bookings, not so much. You can't pick Walker here. Walker is a big dude who clearly has the athletic ability, but he looks comfortable nowhere as a fighter. He is a swing and cling guy not because he thinks that the clinch is a great place for him to win necessarily. It can be, but it's not necessarily that. It's that he's not comfortable doing anything else. He could be something. He's 25 years old. He's a baby by 205 standards, but he's not ready. He's not ready to be here. There's no reason to pick him. There's nothing he's done in a prior fight that looks like it can beat a guy like Alonzo Metafield. Metafield is also a absolute beast of a human being. He is powerful. He is fast. He hits hard. Nothing about his game is like super, super technical, but like it's technical enough, if you know what I mean. It's got the bare bones makings of a decent kickboxing game into a pretty good wrestling game. Like there are moments in like every Metafield fight where I'm like, oh, that's a cool little thing he did there. That's a cool little adjustment or addition. And it's just that he's like 37 years old and I'm not expecting him to really get any better. that kind of like cools my jets. But like, yeah, he should TKO Walker here. Walker is too scared, has fought nothing but like padded record guys. He's from a regional gym. It shouldn't work out. Now, 5 years down the road, might be talking about Julius Walker as like something actually quite good. Maybe. There's nothing to stop that from happening. There's the raw physical talents there. Seems like he can take a little bit of a punch. So there's like a little bit of durability. There's speed. There's power. There's explosiveness. There's great size. 6'4", 81 inches. Are you kidding me? That's fantastic. But he ain't done anything. This is one of the fights, and there's another one coming up later on with Mansour Abdul Malik that kind of covers this as well. You could even say this about Ibo Aslan. You could say this about... That's probably about it. Where like I miss the old WEC days where the UFC would have like a lower end promotion to kind of stick people that weren't really ready for the UFC, but they might be. Like and that we don't trust the regional scene to actually do anything with and like try to make it happen that way. I miss that. I really do. Because I think Julius Walker would be a perfect guy for that. Kind of like a developmental league. That would be fantastic. They kind of have that because they have a lot of influence with like the regional scenes, like LFA and stuff on the booking. But like, I think they really need to get like a determined, dedicated series for this, like a dedicated league. Like, bring back WEC, World Extreme Combat. Have that be the AAA for the UFC. Have that be the G League. Have that be developmental, the NXT, to use a pro wrestling term. And have that be the place for like the walkers and stuff. The guys who have everything that you're like kind of looking for. That like you're like, this could be something, but they're not ready. And I don't trust the regional scene to develop them because I like that's the problem. Like you look at like a lot of guys who are even coming off from like pretty long LFA runs. It's like they're just not getting it. Like this would be the perfect thing. Like put them up against each other and grind them. Get Julius Walker in there against like Ibo Aslan. Let's see what happens. Who's ready? But anyways, and not make UFC viewers have to suffer through it. Menifield by TKO. He's a minus 240 to minus 250 favorite. Walker is plus 186 to plus 200. That's not wide enough. That is not wide enough. Like, again, if Walker hits Benefield with like something really hard and he just goes down, I'm not going to be shocked. I'm not asking for like minus 500 or anything like that. But like, Walker is one of the most unproven fighters on this card. And he's fighting against a guy who, if I'm not mistaken, is probably currently ranked in the UFC 205 division. Let's see here. UFC rankings. Is this a ranked fight? Or not a ranked fight, but is Menifield ranked right now? Yeah, Menifield is ranked. He's the bottom rank. He's number 15, but like, you know, and he should be higher because he's behind Anthony Smith, who's retired. For one thing, I'm pretty sure he's retired. So there you go. So this could be wider. Ibo Aslan versus Ion Kudalaba. I have no idea. If anyone tells you they have an idea of what's going to happen here in terms of like a definitive way, like don't get me wrong, there's a couple of different versions of this fight. I'll quickly cover them. Option A, Kudalaba comes out, takes him down, does his thing. He does the bongo drums. He gets on top. He's just like bam, 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 and at some point the referee stops the fight. Option A. Option B, Kudalaba comes out and does that exact same thing. Aslan just kind of survives long enough for like Kudalaba to fall apart and then knocks him out in like the second or third round. Option 3, Kudalaba comes out and does his thing and gets just nuked because he has no defense. These are the options. One of these three things is going to happen. But if anybody has any like great certainty of which one's going to happen outside of like someone in Kudalaba or Aslan's camp, they're lying to you. And that's all there is to it. I'm going to go with Kudalaba by TKO. The fight is a more or less even money fight. Well, Aslan's a bit of a favorite more than I expect him to be. He's minus 180 to minus 194 and Kudalaba's plus 148 to plus 150. Like, it's just one of those things where like Aslan has really fought nobody. Like if you look at his, even like he's been in the UFC for 2 fights now. But if you look at those 2 fights, they are a guy we're going to talk about later, Rafael Sequeira, and Anton Turkalj, they are bad. They are very bad. And his fights before getting onto Contender Series, where he fought a guy named Paulo Renato Jr., are like very cannish. 5-9, 18-21, 6-7, 8-14, a loss to freaking Anton Turkalj. A win over Robert Valentine. That's not bad. Like, that's not bad, but Valentine's also not a 205er. And then 1-2, 0-0, NA, 0-7, 0-0, NA. Like, no, these are terrible. These are terrible. Like, he has obvious power and everything. That's why I have no problem envisioning that he could knock out Ion Kudalaba. But like, there is nobody he's beaten. Like, Robert Valentine is his best win. Like, that's not good. And then with Kudalaba, you have the fact that this guy has proven he can win against like UFC level competition to a certain degree. We've seen him beat Jonathan Wilson, who at one point was a little bit promising. We saw him beat Luis Enrique da Silva, who's not a bad fighter. We saw him beat Gadzhimov Antigulov before Antigulov fell apart. And by that, I mean that Antigulov was a guy who tended to always fall apart later in fights, but like he beat him in the first round. That's impressive. He beat Khalil Roundtree Jr. That's impressive. He beat Devin Clark. He beat Tanner Bozer. He beat Ivan Urslan that last time out. And like his losses are all to like guys who have like craft and like something to them. Misha Serkinov, Jared Cannonier, Glover Teixeira, Magomed Ankalaev times two, Ryan Spawn, Johnny Walker, Kennedy Nzechukwu, Philippe Lins. These are all like guys who have something. They have flaws. Don't get me wrong. I'm not like, I mean, Johnny Walker has all kinds of flaws. Ryan Spawn, all kinds of flaws. Kennedy Nzechukwu, all kinds of flaws. But like they are legitimate, like kind of monsters in their own right. And that's why I'm going with Kudalaba. But like, no, I am there's nothing about this that says that Ibo Aslan can't just nuke him in one shot. But yeah, I'm not going to go as far as to pick it, and I think the odds are a little skewed. And then we have Andre Fili versus Milk Costa, Melkazil Costa, I think is how it's pronounced. I'm going with Fili. Costa feels like very much like a Fili guy. He's got good size for the division. He's 5'10" at 145. That's pretty big. He is kind of a do everything kind of guy. He strikes with decent power, puts on a decent pace. He'll wrestle fairly competently. He'll grapple and scramble fairly competently. All of this, is Fili as well, except for Fili doesn't really hit all that hard. Fili's had some durability issues lately. Got knocked out by Danny Ige. Got knocked out by a couple of different people here. Let me just pick it up here. The feel that like he's kind of on his way down, and like the knockout loss to Ige is part of that. The knockout loss to Joe Anderson Brito is part of that a little bit. But other than that, it's like Bryce Mitchell, Sadiq Youssef, Nathaniel Wood getting decisions against him, and they are just way more depth of technicality than you're going to see in Costa. So with Costa wins, not shocked. We're at that point where like Fili is on his way out. But we have seen Costa lose to Thiago Moises and Steve Garcia, and then like beat Shilan Nurembeke and have a really competitive fight with Austin Lingo. So I can't really pick him here, but like it'll be a fun action fight, and it's the last fight on this card I have any like positive emotions about. So I guess I need to be happy about that. It's an even money pick'em fight. Fili's -102 to -111. I have him by decision. Costa's -110 to -118. So he is, air quotes, the favorite, but like not really. Nick Klein versus Mansur Abdul Malik. Nick Klein is not that good. Like the thing with Nick Klein is he's not a bad athlete. He's got some good size, but like he has fought guys who are nowhere near UFC level, and he's beaten them. He's, for the most part, he's got one loss on his record, but like he's beaten them. But like there's nothing that like seems like super special about him. Whereas with Mansur Abdul Malik, you have a 6'2", 80-inch reach guy at 185 who's got a wrestling background. I think NCAA Division 1. Clearly has like explosive, like fast hands and powerful striking, even if the defense needs work. Let me be clear. He's a product for refinement. But like the obvious ability is there. And it's not even like the Julius Walker ability where it's like you're a good athlete. No, this guy's like reasonably calm under fire. This guy seems to like reasonably enjoy fighting. He's comfortable striking. Now, that may dim when people like actually start to hit him really, really hard, but I don't think Nick Klein's that guy. Nick Klein is mostly a grappler. I have Abdul Malik by TKO. He is a prohibitive favorite at -1,000 to -1,200. Klein is +600 to +750. Ricky Simon, Javid Basharat, not going to talk about it. Honestly, just going to kind of ignore this fight is here. Ricky Simon looks really, really sad right now. He looks like a guy who is afraid to fight the only type of game that actually works for him. And I can't pick him. It's not even really anything about Basharat, who I like. I'm fairly happy with Basharat. There's a lack of an overwhelming X factor to him, but like he's a good athlete and very well rounded and like very, very flexible. But yeah, I'm just not picking Ricky Simon. Like, period. Ever. Not doing it. Not doing it. Basharat by decision. Simon's still tough, but that's about it. -250 to -280 on Basharat, +200 to +215 on Simon. And then we have Austin Vanderfort, who is here for a guy who is being like famous for like kind of all the wrong reasons. Like he showed up in AEW, and that didn't go super well. He's married to Paige Van Zant. He is, yeah, I don't know. He's he's probably way more like famous than he probably has any right to be as a fighter because he's not very good. But like he's not bad. He's got a little bit of durability issues, but like he's beaten Fabian Edwards. He can wrestle. He can strike. He has a generally good idea of a game plan that he wants to apply. And now that he's down at 170, he's actually got some decent size to him. His 185 was always seemed too small, but yeah, he's back at 170. He's 5'11", 74-inch reach. He's 34 years old. I don't have like great hopes for him, but like it's not a bad pickup for the UFC. It's fine. And he could get detonated here because, like I said, he is questionably durable. But like I think he's got the answers for Nikolai Veretennikov because Veretennikov is a just kind of bully guy. He goes out there and he'll throw really, really hard and make you convinced that you don't want to fight him. And then he wins. And that's his game plan. And when you just don't like go away, doesn't really know what to do. And I assume Vanderfort can eat a couple of decent shots for him because he's not some amazing hitter. He's just kind of a regional bully. So there you go. Vanderfort by decision is the plan by having like an actual plan, a game, a little bit of technical breakdown that goes beyond just like Veretenikov's like super, super, super low output, kind of like bully stuff. Veretennikov is the favorite for some reason at minus 110 to minus 122. Vanderfort's plus 100 to minus 110. If I could find Vanderfort at a good underdog odds, I will probably lean pretty heavily on that. Then we have Nursultan Ruziboev versus Eric McConaughey. And I'm going to go with McConaughey here just because of the MMA lab connections. I've not been impressed by him. Like I watch his fights and I'm like, it's fine. He's a 34-year-old getting a chance at the UFC with not really much to him, but whatever. Let it happen. Let the dream happen. Ruziboev is kind of like Veretennikov, who we just talked about, where although at least in Ruziboev's case, I think he is actually a big hitter and he's 6'5". So like that comes into play. But like his striking in grappling and just everything about his game is like exceptionally grab bag, like useless, not really structurally sound against anybody good. And that's why I'm going with McConaughey to win by decision. But I mean, Ruziboev could put him out, whatever. I don't blame the bettors for having Ruziboev as a minus 275 to minus 295 favorite. It's just one of those fights. I'm just basically putting faith in the lab to come up with a good game plan and have McConaughey go out there and like as a plus 210 to plus 230 underdog do his thing. So I'll put a small bet on that, but like I have no real faith in that fight. And then Bukashkis Bukauskas versus Rafael Sequeira to open up. Sequeira is a beach muscle bum, and that's basically it. He looks good, but that's it. He's a can crusher. Entirely can crusher. Bukauskis is fine. He's not a super, super good 205er. He's not a good enough athlete to really do things in this division, but he's reasonably well structured, somewhat low output, but like some decent counter punching game in there, some decent technical skill on the feet. He's actually a pretty good counter grappler, opportunistic grappler as well. Could grab onto a submission. I'm just gonna say at some point we end up on the ground and he gets Sequeira's neck or something, and Sequeira just panic taps because Sequeira's just not a fighter. I'm not saying he couldn't be, but like he's 34 years or he's 34 years old and he's shown up at the UFC as a guy who literally just beats up bums, and that's it. So Bukowski's submission minus 275 to minus 290. That could be wider, honestly. Sequeira plus 210 to plus 230. I might actually bet on that. I never thought I'd be betting on Modestus Bukowskis at like minus 200 north of minus 200, but Sequeira is bad. Sequeira is just bad. He's just scary looking. That's kind of all he's got going for him. Anyways, that's the card. Like I said, it starts really bad, but it does get to like a really solid main card outside of Walker Menefield. So at least there is that. The undercard leaves a lot to be desired, but the main card does deliver. There should be some bangers on here and it should be fun. Anyways, check out my social media links down below. Check out the video game stuff down below. And I will be back after the fights, assuming that there's a lot to talk about. Like after the Cannoneer card, I just didn't have a lot to say. And that was kind of, at the end of the day, the problem. I was trying to compose a script for it and everything and like some notes. And I was just like, I have very little to say about this. So I kind of merged it in here. Might be doing that a little bit more nowadays, but we'll see. We'll see. I'll probably have something on Twitter, or maybe this is the card where I finally try out Blue Sky. Anyways, have a good day, everybody.